I'm not gonna lie, I'm a teensy bit hungover. I don't do dry January. Hey everyone, how are you doing? I'm gonna be okay because I've got a cup of tea. It's gonna see me through, but I'm really excited about this huge haul of new books that I'm gonna talk about, some of which were given to me over Christmas, and others are new books that are gonna be published in January. So really excited to get to them. Also, I thought I would do an old-fashioned book giveaway because I have an extra bundle of books that I want to give to somebody. So I thought it would be fun. I'll give details of how you can win this bundle later on in the video as I'm talking about the books. So first off, I want to talk about this really fun bookish thing, a bookish game I was given over Christmas called The Writer's Game of Modern Authors. And it's sort of like Top Trumps. There's a huge group of cards all with different authors on them. And all the different authors have a sort of set criteria which they're given a score for. And if you haven't played Top Trumps before, you sort of pass the cards back and forth and name one of the categories and see who has the highest score, and that person gets both the cards. So you get to see who wins at the end and who gets all of the cards, who gets all of the authors. And when I played this, I lost it because the best card in this game is Agatha Christie, who is hugely popular, has sold bundles and bundles of books, and yeah, so has really high scores for that. Only doesn't count high in shock value, which is a bit odd. But yeah, some of the scores in this are a bit strange. But yeah, it's a really fun, cute game. So then next, I want to talk about a book that my parents gave me, which is called The Book on the Bookshelf by Henry Petroski. And this is a book all about keeping books and the craft of books. And so there's a whole thing, I think, about bookshelves and book binding and the history of how books have been stored. So that's really fun. It was a really sweet, thoughtful gift, and a good idea, I guess, they had because they don't know what new books I've read. They assume I've read all of the new books. So they wanted to give me a book on books. My friend Christy gave me a couple books for Christmas. I love my friend Christy. I've been friends with her since we were 14 or something, and we always give each other books. I find a lot of friends and family of mine are a bit nervous about giving me books because, like I said, they just assume that I already have all of the new books, and so they don't want to double gift me. So but Christy and I always give each other books, so that's great. And one of them is the novel Insurrecto by Gina Apostol. This is a novel about two women who travel to the Philippines. One is an American filmmaker who wants to make a film about a massacre that occurred in the Philippines, and another is a Filipino translator, and it's about their story. And I think it incorporates sort of narrative text as well as a film script, but I'm not totally sure. And then the next book is a book of short stories called A Lucky Man by Jamel Brinkley. And this is a really acclaimed book of short stories. They're stories set in Brooklyn and the South Bronx, and they're about men who make really bad mistakes that cause their relationships and friendships to break up. And I've been wanting to read more short stories this year, so I'm really eager to get into these. And while I was in Maine, I also went book shopping with Christy. We went to Print a Bookstore in Portland, Maine. It's a lovely independent bookstore. And the book that I bought was Your Duck is My Duck by Deborah Eisenberg. And these are short stories. It's her first book of short stories in 12 years. And it makes the claim, it's 6 short stories, that each story in this book has the power of a novel, which is quite a big claim to make, but I love really good, powerful short stories. I was also given, I did quite well for myself in a book haul over Christmas for somebody who isn't given books all that often. I got a beautiful first edition of Down There on a Visit by Christopher Isherwood. And this novel, I think, he originally intended the stories in it to be combined with Goodbye Berlin, the short stories in that book, and to make a sort of larger big epic book, but that never really came off. But this still exists as a novel and was published as a novel. And yeah, so really beautiful first edition of this book. And you know, I went to Berlin for the first time a few months ago, so yeah, still want to read more books and stories based in Berlin. My wonderful cousin Martin gave me for Christmas the complete Cosmocomics by Italo Calvino, and these are short stories or vignettes or fables all about the universe and planetary systems, and bringing these larger scientific facts about natural phenomenon into I have trouble saying that word, into just everyday stories of everyday life. And he loves these stories, so I'm really eager to read these. And then finally, I was also given a couple cookbooks for Christmas because I used to do a lot of cooking and baking, and I just sort of became known as somebody that likes to do a lot of baking amongst my friends and family. And you know, it's funny how once you became known for a certain thing or known for liking a certain thing, people will endlessly just give you gifts around that thing because that's what they sort of know you for. And I don't do all that much cooking or baking anymore, but I still love receiving cookbooks because I love reading through them and flipping through them and occasionally making a new recipe. Once I finish reading all of my books, which is never gonna happen, I'm gonna start doing a lot more baking again. So the first book I was given was the Nigel Slater book on the Christmas Chronicles. And his last few books recently have been more of a combination of diaries as well as cookbooks. So he'll just give a diary of his day-to-day life and then just things he makes during those days, and will formulate recipes out of that. So they really make really fun, interesting reading about the course of his life as well as what he is cooking and baking. And it's also a really beautiful book. And then also I was given the Standard Bakery Company book of pastries, and my parents took me to the Standard Bakery Company in Portland, Maine while I was there, and we got this wonderful like tear and share cinnamon bun sort of thing, which was really good. And I also think I brought some cinnamon granola while I was there. And so yeah, I love flipping through this book. I mean, I'll just flip through it all, look at the pictures, and drool. Now the next group of books are all books that are going to be newly published in January in the UK. And the first one is My Sister, the Serial Killer. Now a lot of people have been talking about this book since it just came out, and it's quite a sensational book all about, as you would suspect, a woman whose sister is a serial killer in Nigeria and the complexities of trying to deal with that. So yeah, sounds like quite a thrilling, fun, and like quite a quick read. So I hope to read this soon. A Well-Behaved Woman by Therese and Fowler. And I read Fowler's first novel, Z or Zed, all about the writer Zelda Fitzgerald, who was married to F. Scott Fitzgerald. And this novel is a historical novel all about the Vanderbilts and the mother of Gloria Vanderbilt. I think it's about the mother of Gloria Vanderbilt, who is the famous fashion designer. And inside knowledge, Gloria Vanderbilt is also a very good friend of Joyce Carol Oates. And Joyce Carol Oates just like always wears clothes that were made by her mother, like even when she was much older, she would just make clothes made by her mother. But Gloria Vanderbilt would dress Joyce Carol Oates in all these couture gowns and really like high designer fashion. So that's really fun fact. And also Gloria Vanderbilt is the mother of Anderson Cooper, the famous reporter. So this is a novel exploring all the history of this famous wealthy American family who started a university and has museums and yeah, is really well known and notorious and had complicated lives. So yeah, this sounds like a really great historical novel. The Wall by John Lanchester, and I'm not really sure, I think this is kind of a dystopian novel, though I don't think it's specifically said what time period it's set in, but it revolves around a man who's patrolling a wall, and he's due to patrol a wall for a certain amount of time, and he just wants to get through his obligated period of patrolling this wall. And I think it's meant to be like a reflection on modern times. It has a positive blurb by Philip Pullman, So yeah, it sounds like a really intriguing book. Picnic in the Storm by Yukiko Motoya. This is a writer that is meant to be really famous, popular, well-known, and well-respected in Japan, and she's been published in English for the very first time. She's just been translated. And these stories are about sort of people in domestic life and their workplaces, and the curtain is lifted on their inner lives to show the grotesque and the alien aspects of their lives. So Kenzaburo Owe is a big fan of this writer, and also the writer Carmen Maria Machado, whose book Her Body and Other Parties, a book of short stories I read last year and really loved. So, so I trust their opinions, so really eager to read these stories. And the next couple of new books I'm going to talk about come with the backing of female celebrities and actresses. So, of course, Reese Witherspoon, who's become a big, strong influence in the publishing field, and Sarah Jessica Parker, who has her own publishing imprint now called SJP. And so, yeah, I know some people feel quite like cynical about this sort of thing, but I think anything that brings literature to more people and encourages more people to read is a good thing. So I'm happy about this. So the first book is called Golden Child by Claire Adam. I think it's her debut novel, and this is a novel that comes with the backing of Sarah Jessica Parker. Now, I have to admit, when I first read the title of this book, I couldn't help thinking of Drag Race. For all of you Drag Race fans out there, there's Jessica Wilde from season 2, where she proposed writing a memoir called Dreams of a Golden Child. So when I hear Golden Child, I just think of Jessica Wilde. So people who haven't watched Drag Race, you're just like, what are you talking about? But yeah, that's what makes me think of, and it gave me a giggle. So, but this is nothing to do with that. This novel is about a family in Trinidad. And then there is When the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. And this is a novel about a small town where there's a girl who lives on sort of the fringes of society that's known as the Marsh Girl. And then a murder happens, and people start communicating with her because I think she might be a witness. And so she sort of gets drawn back into society, and how people made all these assumptions about her, which turn out not to be true. Then there are a couple of books called Dark Pines and Red Snow, and Red Snow is the new book that's just been published this month by Will Dean, and these are murder detective stories, and I'm not somebody who reads all that much murder detective fiction, barely any, but I do now and then in January. January feels like a good time for, you know, sort of during winter time, snuggling down and reading a good mystery story. And I just watched recently the ABC Murders, that new adaptation of Agatha Christie story, which was okay. It was fairly good. I enjoyed watching it. Yeah, so these books are about murder mystery cases, and a local reporter, a female reporter who is deaf, and she sort of investigates these crimes. And in Red Snow, there are two bodies. One is a suicide and one is a murder. And the person who is murdered is found with these circular licorice coins over their eyes, which just sort of makes me hungry because I really like licorice. I don't think that's the point, but yeah, so she investigates those cases and whether they're connected or not. So yeah, I'd love to snuggle down and read both of these books and catch up on reading his fiction. A lot of people I know really like his books, and so yeah, that encourages me to think that this is sort of quality detective fiction writing. The Distance Home by Paula Saunders. This is a novel about two siblings, a boy and a girl, who grow up, and the son is much favored by the mother, and the daughter is much favored by the father. And I like that sort of dynamic where it's it's not the sort of traditional gender roles. Like usually the son is more favored by the father and the daughter is more favored by the mother. You know, that's not always the case, but that's how it was in my family. So I think it's interesting to look at that sort of shift and how that plays out in family life. And it comes with blurbs by Jennifer Egan and Michael Cunningham. So I think it'll be, you know, a good, strong literary family story. Mary Ventura and the Ninth Kingdom. This is a little book, a short story by Sylvia Plath, and I think it might be a type of like fable or something, and I think she wrote it quite soon after moving to the UK from America. And I read Sylvia Plath's novel, The Bell Jar, and some of her poetry, but I haven't read much outside of that, so I'd be interested to read this. And also, this is being published as part of Faber's 90th anniversary. They're publishing a whole series of short stories by writers that they've published in the past. And so, yeah, they're publishing these beautiful little books as a celebration of that. And so I was sent an extra bundle of these, so I thought I would give them away to one of you as a prize. And so they're by, I'll see if this can show up. It's on white, so I wasn't sure if it's going to show up. But yeah, you can see they're quite famous authors that they've published these short stories by, and they all have really beautiful covers. So if you want to win this bundle, all you have to do is subscribe to my channel if you don't subscribe already, and hit the like button, and leave a comment below on one or multiple books that I've talked about that you would be interested in reading yourself. And then I'll give it a month, and I'll send this bundle of books. I'll randomly choose a winner from all the comments below, and send this bundle of books to one of you. And it can be open to anywhere in the world. So yeah, just comment below if you want a chance to win these. We Are Never Meeting in Real Life by Samantha Irby, and these are essays all about sort of modern life, and it comes with blurbs from Roxane Gay. So I assume that the essays will be a sort of similar tone to that, just very blunt look at modern life. Nocilla Lab by Agustin Fernandez Mallo. I love saying that name, Agustin Fernandez Mallo. And he is a very famous Spanish writer, and this is actually the third part in a trilogy he wrote called the Nocilla trilogy. And I've not read any of the other books in the trilogy, but apparently you can read this as a standalone book, and it sort of looks at modern digital life. And one writer described in a blurb talking about it that it's sort of, reading him feels akin to flipping through lots of different tabs on your computer of all different sort of interesting tidbits on the internet. So yeah, it sounds like a really interesting, unique experience. What Hell Is Not by Alessandro de Avena. And this is a novel about Sicily in the early 90s and a group of teenage boys who work for different members of the mafia and their sort of influence over the local community, and how these teenage boys have, you know, sort of undue power to them because they work for the mafia, and so they have sort of influence over local people in the community. Bindle Stiff by Wayne Holloway, and this is a novel which is sort of dystopian novel. I think it's set in the year 2036 in Maine, in my home state of Maine. And but it's also set in the present day, where there's a man writing a film script of a dystopian future. So I think it sort of blends different forms of fiction, and it also incorporates aspects of the film script into the novel itself. So yeah, that sounds like quite a unique, interesting new novel. The Beat of the Pendulum by Catherine Chidgey, and this is a novel, she's a New Zealand writer, and this is an experimental novel that's made up of different sort of ephemera in her life, which she gathers together, which people wouldn't normally focus on, but which she gathers together to try to make a overarching narrative. And I think it's really interesting how there's a number of writers today that are trying to capture the essence of modern life in a fictional narrative by combining aspects of modern life. So there's Ali Smith, who gives a blurb for this book, big blurb for this book right at the top. And then there's Olivia Lane, who published a novel last year, which is sort of made up of her reflections and responses to immediate everyday life. So this is another novel sort of in that experimental vein, which I think is really exciting and interesting. And then finally, there is a big, huge, epic book called The Great Wide Open by Douglas Kennedy, who wrote The Pursuit of Happiness. And this is, I think, an epic sort of family story following this different family members in the 1970s and 1980s. And, you know, I love in the wintertime getting lost in a big lawn family epic. So that sounds good. So those are all the books that I hauled. Big, huge, group of books for me to snuggle up with over the winter season. But let me know in the comments below what you're interested in reading. And also, yeah, if you want to enter into the contest, let me know. Just mention alongside your comment of what you're interested in reading that you would like to win this bundle of books. So thank you for watching. I hope you're all doing well and reading good things, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye, everyone.